What ketamine does is it opens up the door. There's a gate between the conscious and the subconscious. For some people, it's like 20 feet high. The ketamine just kind of like gets you over that fence, especially with hypnosis. Hypnosis is like a fast track. It gets you through the noise of meditation way faster. And then ketamine's even faster on top of that. Now you're in the subconscious mind. You just enter the control room of your brain. And you're standing there and you're like, why are those wires like that? That's running on overdrive. Someone needs to tell that mechanism to calm down. But the ketamine helps you see that. It doesn't actually help you rework it. That is what integration is. You come back to earth, you gotta find your own path there. And you're like, oh, I know it exists. I've been there. I felt it. I know it.
The container is now open. Today, we're talking to Anna Krishtal about ketamine, the psychedelic drug that is taking the world of therapy and human spirituality by storm. Anna is a ketamine coach, hypnotherapist, and the host of the Ketamine Connections podcast. So she's kind of the perfect person to talk to about this unique compound. She covers everything from the basics, like what is ketamine, why are people taking it, and what exactly is it like to take it. And then we go all the way into the depths. She tells us how she's used this compound to uncover her past, heal childhood trauma, and reprogram her brain in a way. But before we get into this conversation, I've got to give a shout out to our supporters. They went to patreon.com/thecontainer and they promised to make monthly contributions that keep the ship afloat. If you like conversations like these, the only way they happen is because viewers and listeners like you support. Other ways you can help us out. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment, like, and subscribe. I know you hear that all the time, and you hear it all the time because it really, really, really does help creators like The Container. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave a rating and review. These are simple, small, but really powerful ways to help us get these kinds of conversations into the ears of more people. And with that, here's our conversation with Anna Krishtal. Anna, can you start us off by just briefly describing what ketamine is?
There's so many ways to talk about ketamine. I like to talk about it as the first federally legal psychedelic in the US. And before that, it's a compound, it's a synthetic drug that was developed in a lab in the 1960s. It is used all over the world. It's one of the safest drugs that we have. It's used in surgeries, it's used in crisis moments, and it is so safe and multi-purposeful that it is one of the few drugs on the World Health Organization list of basic human rights. Having access to ketamine is a basic human right in the world. And I can't remember, actually, I said World Health, I think it's actually the UN.
Mm-hmm.
We can fact check that later. So that's to say that ketamine is ubiquitous. It's everywhere in the world. And usually it's used in surgeries and it's used in like crisis moments, like a mine collapsed and they're pulling people out of the mine and the people are in shock. Maybe there's physical trauma and they just give them ketamine to just kind of like chill out until things settle down. So it's an anesthetic. And the dose makes the medicine, right? The dose makes the poison, the dose makes the medicine. And at higher doses, so when we're talking about it used in surgery and trauma intervention, we're talking about it being an anesthetic. Now, they've noticed, I don't know how they figured this out. How did they figure any of this out? That at sub-anesthetic doses, it's a psychedelic. So it gives access into the subconscious mind. It helps to activate neuroplasticity, and it helps to create a new brain, essentially, to transform the subconscious mind, to transform the brain on a subconscious level, which, if listeners are not aware, the subconscious mind is 95%. So, what it's been used for since 2019 at a federally legal psychedelic level is intervention for depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Those are like the top three that it's being used for, and it's really freaking effective. It's being called a miracle drug. They're dumbfounded. Why is it working so fast? The population that's coming to ketamine, there's a few different populations, but when we're talking about what's being talked about with insurance companies and sort of on a public health scale, treatment resistant fill in the blank. So you have a treatment resistant population that is, I mean, that's pretty hopeless, right? You get something, you get a tag, a label like treatment resistant. You're like, well, why bother? I'm resistant to treatment. And all of a sudden, after one session of ketamine, people, 50 to 70% of people experience symptom relief.
Mm.
So that's ketamine.
As I'm listening to this, I'm noticing that ketamine is unique among psychedelics. It's sort of sectioned off from
Mm.
more familiar psychedelics for listeners, like psilocybin mushrooms, so-called magic mushrooms, LSD, also known as acid, and ayahuasca, which has become very popular over the last 10 years in the West. Um, yeah, so how is it different from those medicines, those tools?
Yeah, there's so many different ways to talk about this. I like to come at it in layers. So the first layer is, let's split the synthetics and the plant medicine. Okay, so if we're talking synthetic psychedelics, right? LSD, acid, MDMA, ketamine, those are synthetics. Those are examples of synthetics. You go into the plant medicine from the natural world, then that's where you have, psilocybin, magic mushrooms, ayahuasca, ibogaine. Those are natural medicines. So let's split those apart, because even just that conversation can take up an hour of the difference between a synthetic and a plant medicine. Here's what I like to say, just to kind of condense it down. Plant medicine comes with plant intelligence. And plant intelligence comes from the natural world. It doesn't associate with time the way that we do. I mean, no psychedelic really does, but plant medicines are more of a wild card. Their experiences are much more varied than when working with synthetics. So when working with synthetic medicines like ketamine, the um the cadence, the unraveling, the transformation is a little bit more predictable, to be honest, and it follows a trajectory that's yeah, like more unified than with plant medicine. Plant medicine is a huge wild card. And, speaking on that as well, uh, to get access to plant medicine, uh, it's a more adventurous seeker.
I love that word, adventurous. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, there's so many, to your point, yes, it's become so popular in the last decade or so, and there are plenty of ceremonies for all sorts of medicines in the US that are not legal, and that in itself is more adventurous. But even 5-ish years ago, you had to, if you wanted to sit with a medicine like that, you had to travel to a foreign country, make your way to the jungle, overcome a lot more obstacles. Whereas now with ketamine therapy, there's clinics all over the country. There's at-home ketamine being delivered to people's homes. There's access, and I don't believe in a lot of people talk about like a hierarchy or like a ladder of psychedelics. I have clients all the time like, "Oh, I tried ketamine and next I'm going to go try mushrooms." They're all different. They are
Mhm.
all different. Not only are they all different, but every single journey you have is different. So we can take the element of predictability out and leave a little bit of it in for ketamine. And from working in the ketamine space, I started off as a psychedelic coach. Well, I started off as a hypnotherapist, then I started doing psychedelic coaching. And so I've actually coached people in a lot of different psychedelic, working with a lot of different types of psychedelics. And I will say, working with ketamine almost exclusively for the past 5 years, uh, a lot less like getting knocked out, like a lot less like bad trips, a lot less of that like intensity that can come with plant medicine.
Yeah, I imagine that for some listeners, anxiety around taking psychedelics often comes from that fear of a bad trip, or what if I get in over my head? Um, and if ketamine has less of that, that might make it a more uh, desirable like choice. And that has me wonder, what can you say just about what it feels like? I think that just
Mm.
wrapping our minds around what actually there's a lot of this mystical words bandied about, but when you actually open the door and go through, like, what is in there?
I know, right? Everybody wants to know, but like I have a dear friend, Dr. James Latham. I mention him all the time because he's just such a visionary in the psychedelic space. He runs a ketamine clinic in Scottsdale, Arizona, and he says the best thing. He says ketamine is a show you, not a tell you. So it's a little bit of like fuck around, find out, and I do have an answer. So okay, we're talking about a lot of people coming to psychedelics to get out of those dense states, right? Like depression, like, oh my God, that's heavy. Anxiety is like, oh my God, I can't breathe, right? PTSD is like, am I safe, right? Like these dense states that limit our ability to relax, breathe, and just kind of be present with life because our trauma is looping when we're in those states. And knowing, from my hypnotherapist sort of lens, knowing what's happening psychologically, subconsciously, is that there is a loop, and it's like circles, circles, circles. A lot of times, people are like, I'm stuck. You're not stuck. You're just going in circles because you're not stuck. The earth is still spinning. Your air, oxygen's still happening. Your heart's still beating. You're not stuck, but you are repeating patterns. So a lot of
Mm,
those states are pattern repetition. If we're not talking mental health for coming to psychedelics for mental health, there's a lot of like leadership, right? How to become a better leader, how to become a better innovator. A lot of that coming to ketamine as well. And historically, when we look at indigenous societies, when we look at even how psychedelics are used in the animal kingdom, they're used to disrupt a pattern.
mm,
So that is the most basic level, is like, okay, it's gonna shake things up. Now, with ketamine specifically, it's a little bit more predictable, and the reason is that ketamine is a dissociative. So it lifts you up and out of your experience, which holy crap, right? Like, I mean, I work with clients work they've been with these diagnoses, depression, anxiety, whatever. Honestly, more than a decade is the norm. And so it's like, oh my gosh, I just took the first breath that I have in 10 years, right? Like, oh my God, I'm not associated into my experience of depression. And even just getting like 10 seconds away from that cracks the freaking matrix of that loop. Because what that loop says is, I feel this way all the time. I'm always going to feel this way. No matter what I do, I'm always going to feel this way. And then you have this experience of being lifted out of that experience, and you're like, that's enough.
mhm,
Like a 10-second break from whatever's been looping is enough to go, oh shit, something else is possible.
mm. I find it interesting, that term dissociative state, because another time that's that's often used is in moments of trauma. We are ripped into a dissociative state. We're kind of
Mm,
ripped, without expectation. We're all of a sudden we're dissociating, and while something really intense is going on, that if we weren't dissociated, my understanding is like like we're very lucky that we can dissociate because things might be shattering to us. And
yeah.
then it's interesting to me that we can we can purposefully induce a dissociative state, and then you can kind of heal wounds that were created. Often ketamine, from my understanding, is used a lot in trauma healing, and particularly with like PTSD patients. So yeah, there's something interesting about that. The dissociative state is this kind of magical angel state.
Yeah. Well, there's different types of dissociative states. Um, yes, what you're talking about, like when trauma happens, there's often yeah, the common trauma responses, right? And you're not fully present when that's happening because you're this like greater intelligence takes over that's like keep you safe, right? Like whatever coping mechanism is you developed in childhood to keep you safe in that moment takes over. Um, a lot of it too is just to get a little bit more esoteric and mystical, like soul fragmentation, right? Like something happens and the soul kind of just like, ooh, let me jump out real quick. That's a dissociative state for sure. And there are other dissociative states like trance that are different. So there's in when we look at again indigenous societies that are older than ours, there's different ways of inducing trance: dance, chanting. I mean, just sitting at a fire and staring into it, right? That's a trance right there. And that is what ketamine does. That's what psychedelics do, is that they take us out of our normal brain processing. They disrupt the pattern of our habitual thinking. We think about 70,000 thoughts a day, and about 90 to 95% of them are on repeat. And what we know from how we perceive the world, there is no objective perception. We are creating the world through our perception, through our thoughts. And that is what psychedelics disrupt. And they start messing with things a little bit. And not only do they start messing with our perception, right? What's the quote? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Mm.
I cannot attribute it, but someone can look it up. And so when you change your perspective, right? For example, um, gosh, getting fired. What a hard, if someone getting fired from a job, that's hard. Universally, that's hard. We live in a capitalistic society. Our vocation, our, job is associated to root chakra needs, right? Like the Maslow's hierarchy, food, shelter crap, right? And then you same person looks at that and goes, I kind of didn't really like that job. And maybe this is an opportunity for me to shift my, attention and my energy towards something else. Same action, same, you know, getting fired, same event. Okay, oh shoot, why me? Am I gonna make it? Is like, and depending on the person's trauma background, subconscious patterning, right? Someone can experience something like a loss of a job and go into the case of the why me's, the world is against me, bad things always happen to me, etc. That's a very common narrative in our society. And there are always other narratives available. And when we go into perspective shifting, when we go into trance, we get the ability to zoom out and see different perspectives. And then what's really freaking cool, well, now you have different stories. So if there's no objective reality and you've zoomed out enough that there's different stories, like you can pick it off the shelf like a book from a library, why not pick the mindset and the thoughts and the reality that you want.
Yeah. That seems like a great definition, just almost of a magical practice. It's like that is what magic is almost, is like using story as a way to change reality.
Like, why? I ask this question to clients all the time. It's like, why are you choosing the explanation that causes you the most pain?
Mm. Has me wonder if you can share a time that you were able to choose a new story for yourself in your own journeys with ketamine, if that feels okay to share.
So, I am an immigrant in the US. My family moved to the US when I was 5 years old, from the Soviet Union, and in the early 90s. And the narrative around that is that, whoa, how lucky we are. And we are. I'm very lucky and I'm very fortunate to live in this country, to be a US citizen and all of that. So grateful. And, that was the narrative that I grew up with. Like, oh, we're so lucky. Half my family went somewhere else. Half my family came here. There's like a big diaspora. I'm a fourth generation refugee. So I'm the fourth generation of, like, the country I was born in does not exist by the time I'm going to die. And so none of, like, four generations of, like, my ancestry just being like, so, and landing somewhere else than they began. And landing in this country is wow, like, people, we have so much freedom here, so much more than anywhere. The fact that you and I can sit here and have this conversation, this cannot happen everywhere in the world. And when I started diving into um, inner child healing, and I using ketamine to so I like to combine ketamine with hypnosis. So at home ketamine combined with hypnosis, to start digging around, start going deep. My background is hypnotherapy, and when I add ketamine to it, it just fast tracks it. Okay. So I start doing that work. I'm just like at home ketamine. I'm doing a session with a colleague. I'm receiving hypnosis from a colleague. Then I'm using hypnosis recordings and I'm doing inner child work. And I realized that my life in the old country was better than the new country for my 5-year-old self.
Mm.
It was very disruptive. It was not like, things did not work out well for me when we moved here. Things just got shuffled up. And so that was a huge perspective shift, because I was walking around shaming myself into gratitude. I should be so grateful. Like, why aren't I more grateful? Why can't I, be accepting of the miracle that is my life, that I was born in that country and now I live in this country where, like, holy crap, like, my life, the life I was born into, is that context was not possible for what I live now. And then, but when I realized, like, oh my gosh, like, that little baby girl, 5-year-old, that freaking sucked. That was horrific. And
Mm.
there's like, nothing that anyone did. My parents did a great job. They did the best they could. I love my parents. I have nothing but respect for my parents. When we moved over here, my main caretaker was my grandfather. He died really quickly. They changed up his heart medication. He died very quickly. So now I don't have a caretaker. That was terrible. And then I got put into school. I didn't speak any English. That didn't go well for me. I got bullied a lot.
Mm.
And the way that I dealt with that bullying was to take myself out of the classroom, because I knew I started school in the US. I knew one phrase in English. Can I go to the bathroom? So anything that happened I was like, can I go to the bathroom? And then I was like, oh, now I guess I got to go to the bathroom. So I spent a lot of time just, like, hanging out in the bathroom by myself. And when I look at that now, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's, like, terrible for a little kid to experience that and not have, like, support and guidance and, the proper sort of, like, I don't know, entry into a new life. And then I was just like, that's a huge perspective shift of, like, oh, like, I understand myself so much better. I understand my anxiety so much better. I understand my depression so much better. I understand how to care for myself, because that little baby girl 5-year-old self, like, we all have our inner child that lives within us, and she needed to be seen in that experience. She needed to be witnessed in that experience, and the only person that could give that to her was me. And once she got that, so many things in my life shifted. So many people are walking through the world, uh, and the reins of who's controlling their life is some unhealed portion of them, often a young portion of them. And so when we get that ability to go in, peek behind the curtain, right? Get away from the conscious into the subconscious and go, "Oh shit, that's what's running the show." Right? I'm like, "Oh my god, my 5-year-old's running the show in so many areas of my life." And as soon as I got into her, and she's like right here, she like hangs out. This is my passport photo from from immigration.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's right here. And she doesn't need to like be in charge anymore. Like she can just like she just hangs out on the playground all day now because she knows that I got it.
Hmm.
And all of that was work that I did combining hypnosis with ketamine.
I feel really touched by that story.
Oh, thank you.
There's, yeah, there's such, I think something that uh, I'm really touched by, especially recently about doing inner work. It's life or death. Like it's like you can live your whole life and never do the inner work and miss
Mhm.
out on so much. It's just the stakes couldn't be higher. As a ketamine coach, uh, you have this understanding that there's actually better ways to do inner work. If you're doing ketamine, there's like better ways to do ketamine. It's a lot of medicine. I think we take it and then we're like, okay, took the pill, and
Mm,
now it's just going to do this same job it would either way. If I have a headache, I take an Excedrin, and I don't have to sit there and be like, okay, Excedrin, like I'm like, let's do it right. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, with psychedelics, it's different. It's just a different beast, and so I want to really start to dig into the tactics and the strategy you use. It's really interesting that you have this toolkit of hypnotherapy that kind of got you started. So you already had some set of like tactics for getting in there and working with the mind. Yeah, could you talk a little bit about just how do you do ketamine? Like on a on a practical level, like when you're in
Sure.
there.
I'll tell you how most people are coming to ketamine, like what they're doing as they come to ketamine, that I think is tragic, that I think is missing the point, and that I know for a fact is a missed opportunity. So what you're talking about, right? Like you take the Excedrin, it does the thing, you move on with your day. That's what we have as the allopathic model of medicine, where it's very biological, it's very mathematical. It's you are the sum of your parts. It's very much why, oh gosh, I remember reading like Osho years ago, and it's like, why are the doctors in different rooms? Like, why is the cardiologist in a different room from the endocrinologist? Like, why are we thinking that things in here, it's one vessel and we think it's not connected? So uh again, treatment resistant, right? A lot of the people coming to ketamine have some label, some stamp of treatment resistant or depression or anxiety. And treatment resistant, by the way, is failing two interventions within a very short amount of period. I can't think of it right now, but it's like it doesn't even give them a chance, basically. And in our allopathic model of medicine right now, it's like you take a pill and the pill does the work. You take the pill and the pill does the work. And people are coming to ketamine going, oh, the ketamine's going to fix me.
Hmm.
Right? Whereas what actually happens is you have we all have it. You have it, I have it, everyone has it. As much digging as I've done, I know there's always more to do. A storeroom in the back, the junk drawer.
Yeah.
We all have a mental
The
junk
scotch
drawer.
tape, the weird
Yeah,
scissors, the batteries. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it was in my junk drawer that I didn't have a good time immigrating. Like, that
Right.
like, from my adult self, like, I was gosh, how old was I? Like, 34 maybe when I had this discovery, and I'm like, "Oh, I much rather be in this country than anywhere else that I could have ended up in the world." And, like, that's conscious, that's 5% conscious, but the 95 subconscious was still in the element of loss and mourning and grief and what the fuckery. And so what ketamine does is it opens up the door to that junk drawer so that you can look into it and go, "Oh, okay, yeah, I don't need this, I don't need that." Like, start moving around with it. And the cool thing is that the the things that you overcome to do ketamine, the lessons that you learn to do ketamine then serve you to actually deal with the things that you uncover. So, for example, right, you asked a brilliant question of like, well, what does ketamine feel like? Well, I told you it's a dissociative. So it's like, but like, okay, most of us don't know unless you have like a very like well practiced over time meditation practice, or there's other ways of trance, right? Like the Sufi whirlish dancers, right? That they're in a trance, right? So unless you've developed some sort of practice of getting reprieve from your body, we're not taught this. This is not a part of our society. So okay, now you're like, "Oh, I have an experience of being outside of myself. Oh, that's interesting." Right? "Oh, I have an experience of like maybe some intensity comes up," right? Like, "Ooh, what's about to happen?" Well, I'm going to breathe through that anxiety and I'm going to um bring myself into the present. And so all of those skills that you learn from doing ketamine then help you actually sort through the the junk drawer. The way that I talk about it often is, you know, the ketamine, it gets you past that guardian, there's a veil, there's a gate between the conscious and the subconscious. And for different people, like for some people, it's like 20 feet high. And the more you work with that, the lower it gets.
Mm.
So it's a practice like anything else, like when I moved to Austin, Texas 3 years ago, I couldn't automatically drive to the yoga studio the way I can now. I've practiced driving there, so now I can do it automatically. So we don't emphasize practice and discipline very much in our culture. We just like want to get it immediately. So getting into the subconscious is a practice. And the ketamine just kind of like gets you over that fence. I was just like, there you go. You're there now. You don't have to sit in meditation for, gosh, I've been a meditator for like over a decade. Right? And I love it, especially with hypnosis. Hypnosis is like a fast track of meditation. It gets you through the noise of meditation way faster. And then ketamine's even faster on top of that. And I'm like efficiency, right? It's like, yeah, like life or death. We're all gonna die. And it's just like, let's sort through this mess as fast as possible. I'm all about efficiency. So the ketamine just like boosts you over the fence, and now you're in the subconscious mind. And I like to think about it of like you just entered the control room of your brain, and you're standing there and you're like, "Well, that's not I don't like that. Like, why are those wires like that?"
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, that that's like that's running on overdrive. Like, someone needs to tell that mechanism to calm down." But the ketamine helps you see that. It doesn't actually help you rework it. That is
Mhm.
what integration is. The integration is to actually go, oh, okay, I see that this is overactive. How do I slow it down? I see that these two portions are not talking to each other. How do I get them to connect more? And the ketamine is like any psychedelic. It's like it'll airlift you to a really beautiful vista. And then you come back to earth. You got to find your own path there. And you're like, oh, I know
Mhm.
it exists. I've been there. I felt it. I know it.
Right. And that's
And that's
big.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing too is that like ketamine and psychedelics, they're very visceral, embodied medicines. So it's not like you don't come out of a journey going, was that real? You're like, oh no, that was real. That was freaking, I felt it. I saw it. I heard it. Like people are like very like, that happened. And it's like, and especially I love it too, because I listen to trip stories all the time, like, and then there was a boat, and then there was a whale, and and then there was I don't know, an astronaut, and they're like, it's like bringing back this like play and imagination part. But yeah, the ketamine gets you over the fence, gets you from the conscious into the subconscious. You open up and you're like, cool, there's my subconscious programming, go do something with it. And
Right.
that's the part that we're missing. And honestly, I think it's also like I think it's completely preposterous to talk about psychedelic medicine without talking about the subconscious mind. What else are we changing if not the 95% patterning that runs the entire show?
Mhm. Yeah, and I love the at the end of the day, like you have to do it then. Like you actually have to then do it. You enact it. I think the idea that you can just ingest something, take a pill or like, pay the money, get the product, and then that's it. There's something much more, to use this word again, adventurous in the psychedelic journey, which is that you then make it real and tangible in your life. And I imagine is that what ketamine coaching really is getting people to those like practical steps.
Yeah, so a lot of my work is first answering these questions that no one's answering.
Yeah.
So, right, people are like, it's like people are sitting in their prescriber's psychiatrist office and they're like, "Well, I'm out of options for you. Go do ketamine."
Yeah,
And
right.
it's like, what is it? And how do I do it? What do you like? What do you mean? Like, it's so far outside of our model of healing and our model of operating. So people have like questions like the ones that you have, like, what is it? Where is it come from? What's it gonna do to me?
Yeah, right.
you know is it gonna like give me bad memories? Is it gonna take me to a dark place? Like all of these questions. So the first step, the first part of my work is just answering questions. And I've been doing it for again 5 years. So I know the common questions. Um and then it's okay preparing you for ketamine, because there is one rule for psychedelic use. One number one rule. Set and setting. They're equally important. So your setting is your literal geographical location. Where are you on planet Earth when you are you're setting for ketamine? And everyone that I work with, I actually have worked with a little bit more of at-home ketamine people recently in the past like 3 months. But I started this 5 years ago when that wasn't at home ketamine wasn't even a thing. So that's the setting part is pretty good. Like you're at a clinic, you've chosen the clinic, you hopefully feel safe there, etc. So the setting part is taken care of if you're doing it at a clinic. There is a portion of the ketamine preparation protocol that I offer up on my website that has like how to create your own setting that is ritualistic and things like that. Uh, Set is your mindset. So what do you do to prepare your mind, right? To work with ketamine is you set an intention. Now, most people don't know how to set intentions. We know how to set goals, but we don't know how to set intentions.
Ooh, that's an
Intention,
interesting difference there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Intentions are what I like to call a North Star. Like, and for a lot of people coming to ketamine, like, has anyone asked them, like, why are you doing this? Oftentimes, no. And to our voice is so powerful. To say things out loud is really powerful. And so for someone to go, I'm doing this for my health and well being, great. What does that mean? The number one answer I get for 5 years, 99% of people, I want to be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all do. What does that mean? Truly, like think about like, well, how do you know you're not happy right now? When was the
Mm.
last time you were happy? What was that like? How do you get back there? So the intention is it's a North Star. I also like to talk about it like it's your train ticket. Uh I love train travel. And
Nice.
if you get a train ticket, there's going to be other stops along the way. I'm not going to freak out when the train stops somewhere I don't want to go. I'm just like, this isn't my stop. Cool, right? And there are going to be other stops along the way. The level of grief and heartache and loss that I had to experience and process through my system and move out of my subconscious and out of my body to sit whatever 10 minutes ago and tell the story about the biggest loss of my life in a very casual way. Like that took a while. I couldn't talk about that way, a couple of years ago. And that's the beauty of it, is when you get to look back at your life, right, with a different perspective and take the emotion out of whatever happened. Memories without emotion are wisdom. What makes for a brilliant adulthood, whatever, wisdom, right? we don't
Mm.
we don't value wisdom in our culture. We're superficial and we value youth.
Right.
Truly, we're things are shifting slowly, but look at, oh my gosh, look at Eastern cultures. they their elders are, I have like chills everywhere, they're revered. They're the wisdom keepers. They're the people that we go to for advice and guidance. What do we do in our culture? We lock them away.
Mm.
We call them senile. We say that they don't know what they're talking about. And so it's just like, again, we just like want to know everything right now. We want to have everything right now. We want to, 2-day delivery is not fast enough. Give it to me in 4 to 6 hours. Like, fine.
Mm.
But that is eroding at the purpose of life. I don't know. I just made that up. I have to sit with that. But truly, right? It's like getting getting to a place where you are in control of your existence.
I'm really touched by this connection with elders, and there's a way that um, ketamine and psychedelics in general really are in this line of wisdom.
Mm.
It's wisdom work in a way, and
Mhm.
it's that's something that I think uh, I'm a millennial, and I think a lot of our listeners are millennial and maybe even a little younger, maybe a little bit older, but we are now a couple generations removed from people who grew up at a time where elders were revered,
Mhm.
or I think also society has changed so rapidly. Like people who are older today just did not even grow up nearly the same way we did. So that they're very wise, but there's a lot of translation anyways that you need to do, because it's, they the world has changed so rapidly, and I think recovering wisdom and wisdom traditions, that feels like such massive work that these tools can do for us. I don't know if that feels, yeah, does that feel aligned with what you're saying?
I have a conspiracy theory.
Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
I made it up. Uh, but it's from working in the psychedelic space, from having my own transformation with psychedelics, from just being someone who is very observant and very good at spotting patterns. So we've gotten and to your point, yes, like holy shit, like gosh, like trying to explain an iPhone to someone in an older generation is like, oh my gosh, it's like begrudging work. It's a lot of patience. So there is this thing of like, oh, the older generation doesn't understand. That's not new. Just with like technology that's been around, the human experience, when you look at it, like I was reading Socrates a couple months ago. That's like BC. That's thousands of years old. And I was like, these are very relevant terms. Like that is very relatable. Whatever was being said. I'm like, whoa. Like the human experience, the themes and the topics of the human experience have not changed, no matter how much technological convenience we put on it. So my conspiracy theory, let me put it into words. We're coming to psychedelics. We're in the psychedelic renaissance where a lot of people are coming to psychedelics. It's becoming very mainstream, and it's guiding us back to being more human. So, okay, a lot of people, oh gosh, it's so human to feel othered, right? Have you like Can anyone raise their hand of like, I've always felt like I belonged. Like everyone has a moment where they're like, "Oh, do I belong here?" Right? That is separation, right? That's the feeling of separation. Well, psychedelics lower our feelings of separation. That's why people like the trope of like someone on a mushroom staring at a piece of grass for 3 hours and like, whoa, we are one,
Hmm.
right? Because as the mechanisms in our brain that make us feel separate lower, then we feel more connected to other people. So people are coming to some people, not everyone comes to psychedelics. A lot of depression, anxiety, like all of that is that like feeling of like, oh, no one understands. No one understands my pain. It's very common. And I don't want to minimize it. The pain is real. I know it is. I've been there for sure. And it's universal in a way. And so now the psychedelics are like, oh, actually, I can connect with other people. Ooh, you know what late stage capitalism doesn't like? Community,
Mm, right.
right? Because if I know my neighbor and I can borrow their lawnmower, guess what? I don't need my own. We can have a community lawnmower. Why do we all need what like why are there 20 houses on this block and everyone has their own lawnmower?
Right.
Anyways, so conspiracy, right? So they're bringing us back to our natural state. Another thing, right? Like going outside. I don't have a single client that I've worked with, I mean, hundreds of people over the past 5 years that do not spend more time outside after working with ketamine.
Interesting.
Nothing's 100%, but I'll go with 99.9. So the conspiracy of like,
Wow.
oh, like this thing that's coming out to like fast track society, but is actually bringing us back to more human. People coming out of ketamine feel more patient with themselves, which helps them feel more patient with others. We can use less people cutting each other off on the highways, right? We can use a little bit more generosity with like waiting in line and things like that. Um, and so this thing, and that's what I love is you have kids, right? Did we talk
Mm-hmm.
about that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You create something, anything, a human, a project, a house, it takes on a life of its own. And so this psychedelic renaissance, like oh, it's taking on a life of its own. And the more I guide people through ketamine, the more I see people, come through ketamine, the further they get from being interested in fitting in. Because it's that, like, fitting in that causes so much pain of just, like, a lifetime of, like, I'm a square peg and this is a round hole and I'm just gonna grind and grind and grind and grind. And just like, "You know what? Let me just go hang out with the other square pegs." So, yeah, I don't know if I explained that conspiracy theory particularly well, but some element of, like, the psychedelics are they're taking on a life of its own, and it's actually bringing us into more grounded, like, older way of living rather than fast tracking us to more technology.
That is really a fascinating overlap. We've been connecting on the container and in our work a lot with this idea of the human renaissance that's happening all
Mm.
around us. This like very grassroots movement of people just being like, oh yeah, we're humans, like we want to garden and make art and have meals together, and it's unstoppable because we're all, if you look around, so many people are doing all of these little things in their lives that you just can't stop it. It's not fighting anyone, it's not trying to take anything that someone else's. It's just we're going to choose to live in this different way, this more, in some ways more traditional way, but in other ways just radically sci-fi, like, let's be the future human now. um I really feel it. It's just bubbling everywhere, and that uh the psychedelic renaissance going along with that feels very hand in hand to hear you talk about it. Like it just having this natural impact of people being more community minded, being more going out, just literally, like, I love this detail, like just going outside more. It's just come, like they want you in rooms, people, they want you in rooms looking at screens, being mad or being scared or being, oh, that's funny. They want you in there in your room. That's where you are, and you're getting DoorDash delivered and you never even see the guy, it just, the bag appears, and that's
So
life
true.
now. And
Oh, man. I I don't have the skill set of DoorDash. My housemate does. So sometimes, like once a year, when I'm like, I want to order food, and I'm like, can you help? Can you help me learn this skill set of DoorDash? I don't actually have it. Uh, there's, talking about depression and anxiety and all of this, like, right, life renaissance, human renaissance. There's, I forget where this comes from. I think it's somewhere in Africa, where when someone would get sick in indigenous societies, they would, like, this kind of sick, like depression, like
mm,
low on life. We've had this forever. Depression is not new with our technological advent. And what would happen, they would come forward, and the town healer, whatever, the shaman would say, was, "Look, when was the last time you danced? When
oh
was the last
wow.
time you sang? When was the last time you laughed? When was the last time you put your feet on the earth?" And that is exactly what people are coming out of ketamine doing. They're going outside more. Maybe they're putting their feet in the earth. I hope they are. They're singing more, they're dancing more. There's music in their life. There's the vibration of life is coming back into them, that is reminded of that ancient way of being.
Mm, beautiful. Uh, that has me called to talk about this lingering stigma around psychedelic use. This is such a new frontier for a lot of people. For many decades, psychedelics has been in the culture, but in the counterculture, of course, is
Mhm.
where it erupted with such, um, yeah, beautiful kaleidoscopic color. Uh, Many generations ago now, well, a few generations ago now, in the West. But in the counterculture, I think it remained, and it had a feeling of danger, and maybe
Mm.
and maybe rightfully so in some instances. Like you know, on this show, um, sobriety from alcohol was a really big part of my journey, and I know
Mm.
that we don't want to be promoting irresponsible drug use or being promoting an idea that consuming substances like freewheeling, sort of like that's there's no safety issues with that. I know for me, alcohol was so harmful to my life and to
Mm.
so many people I've loved. It has hurt them so badly, and I wouldn't want to be promoting irresponsible use of chemicals that might might do real harm. So I'm wondering, I those feel related. This sort of ongoing stigma of psychedelics, um, and also expressing some like note about what harm might be done and how we could mitigate harm or protect listeners from making decisions that might be damaging.
This is such a good question because there is harm that can be done. And also wondering, like, what is the harm of certain things? So I'm thinking specifically of an episode that I did actually with my friend Troy Leonard, who runs a company, co-founded a company called Valor Minds that's doing psilocybin for veterans, but really anyone in Colorado where it's legal. And he's a military vet, and when he came out of the military was given all of these cocktails of drugs and alcohol for to cope with his PTSD, and it wasn't going well until he started working with mushrooms, and then he actually got to go through the junk drawer, clean things out, and have have a cleaner junk drawer and actually cope. So when we're talking about harm, like, okay, uh alcohol is really legal. It does a lot of harm
Hmm.
on a societal level, on a personal level, drunk driving, like belligerence, like all of this that comes out through alcohol use, so legal, ubiquitously legal. We have a culture around alcohol. Okay, then in the 1920s, right, with cannabis, reefer madness, right? Oh, reefer is gonna, or cannabis is gonna make you crazy, blah blah blah, like all of that. Now it's legal, right? So when we're talking about legality, is like, who's making these decisions and what is their motivation? Even with ketamine, it became legal because Spravato, Johnson and Johnson created Spravato, which ketamine, like with the way that drugs work, like after a certain time, there is like the open patent and you can't make money off of it. That's why there's always new drugs coming out because they need to make more money. Once it's like open, I forget what it's called, like the generic, right? Like once a drug is been around enough and then you can get a generic of it, well, that company that created that drug, they're not making the same money anymore, so they need to create new drugs. So ketamine is in that camp. Ketamine, it's not ketamine, it's the Spravato that became legal, which is a money trail, right? Why did reefer madness come out? Well, because hemp is the same plant as cannabis, and hemp is really strong. It is a really strong fiber. You can use it for rope, you can use it for construction. And what happened right around the same time? DuPont created nylon and they wanted to sell nylon rope. So they went on a whole advocacy campaign to illegalize cannabis, which illegalized hemp, so that we can now use synthetic fibers. So yes, there is harm that can be done, but, like, I don't know, talk to someone who sat with mushrooms. You're not gonna wanna do that every day. Like, you're really not. Maybe a microdose. That's not what I'm saying. Microdoses are sub-perceptual dosing of a substance that help with, the stuff that's going on subconsciously. But it's just like people come out of ketamine going, "Oh my god, this was amazing. This was great." But it's not necessarily something, if you're doing it properly and you're taking the messages from ketamine and then integrating them into your life, you're not going to like, "Oh, I need to do this again and I need to do this again and I need to do this again." It's not ketamine can be addictive in a different context. I'm not going to minimize that. But when we're talking about harm, what is the harm that we're actually discussing? And when talking about using psychedelics, what the biggest mechanism of harm reduction in psychedelics use is to have a freaking intention. Why are you taking this substance? And you know what? I can bring that to anything that you're doing. Why are you drinking alcohol? Why are you eating vegetables? Why are you opening up your phone?
Mm.
Right? Like, bring a little presence, bring a little, like, mindfulness to whatever is happening, and that's why you can take, like, I didn't mention this earlier, but ketamine is also a rave party drug, and it's known for that as well, and it's just like, if ketamine was the reason people were healing from depression and anxiety, PTSD, then everybody who did it at a rave would be enlightened beings.
Right, right.
It's not the case. Why is ketamine in this context of intentional use? Because when you add intention, it ripples through and changes the fabric of what's happening.
Mm. Beautifully said.
You had an intention for this conversation, and it's been beautiful. We could have, I mean, you and I could have, because we had an intro call, right? And it's like you, me, and Sai, like we could just sit here and riff, whatever, but that would have been a winding road of talking about everything under the sun. But you've kept us on track. Your intention has kept us on track to only talk about ketamine mostly. A few tangents, but
Well, when you get the Ketamine Connections host on, you gotta talk ketamine, at least
You
for
gotta
the
talk about
first time.
all the things it connects you to. There's an intention why I
Absolutely.
called it Ketamine Connections, because the ketamine is going to connect you to so many things.
Mm-hmm. Ah, that feels like a really beautiful note to end on, Anna Krishtal. How do people find your work? How do they find your podcast? And how do they get you as a coach if they want to pursue ketamine therapy themselves?
So, Ketamine Connections is the podcast that I run. It's available anywhere you listen to podcasts. And all of my links are in the show notes. So, I developed the ketamine preparation protocol, which is a way to talk about this stuff, talk about ketamine healing in community, which I think is beautiful because it's nice to be in the Zoom room with people who are speaking the same language, going through similar experiences. And yeah, and all the links for one-on-one coaching or hypnotherapy work is also just go to the Ketamine Connections podcast, go to my website, annakrishtal.com, and everything is there. I'm very findable, very
Cool.
reachable.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. This is a great
Ah,
conversation. I appreciate it. I run my show and I talk a lot and about ketamine, and it's fun to come here and say things that I don't talk about on my show that are a
uh-huh.
little bit out of the scope of ketamine, a little bit more esoteric. So I appreciate that.
Awesome. And with that, the container is now